Nothing outside you can harm you unless you let it. Imagine this. You're walking through a peaceful forest, surrounded by the quiet strength of ancient trees. Suddenly, someone shouts at you from a distance. Their voice is angry, accusing. Your heartbeat quickens. Your peaceful state shatters. But why? Here's the paradox. Nothing outside of you can truly disturb your inner peace unless you give it permission. This isn't just poetic wisdom. It's the core of the Buddha's psychological insight. And in our fast-paced, hyper-connected world, this teaching feels more vital than ever. We live in a constant storm of opinions, judgments, and emotional landmines. But what if the key to freedom isn't changing the world, but mastering our relationship to it? Today, we dive into one of the most empowering and practical teachings in Buddhism, how to become unshakable. We'll explore not just ancient words, but how to live them in a world full of noise and chaos. My personal story. I used to be someone who worried a lot about controlling every aspect of my life. A job, relationships, a predictable life, these were the things I sought. I thought that only by controlling everything could I feel safe and free. But in reality, the opposite happened. The more I tried to control, the harder and more exhausting life became. Everything seemed to slip through my fingers, and I felt more and more stressed. But there was a turning point. One day, as I stood by the ocean, I watched the waves crash against the shore without any interference. I realized that, just like those waves, life cannot be controlled entirely. The more I tried to control it, the further I drifted from myself. That was the moment I began my journey toward real freedom. Freedom wasn't about holding on to everything. It was about letting go. From that point, I started studying the lessons in Buddhism about letting go, detachment, and self-awareness. I learned that true freedom isn't about controlling everything, but about learning how to live in harmony with oneself and the world around us. Part 1. How our inner world shapes the outer world. Let's start with this powerful idea. No one can make you angry, upset, or fearful. Only your own mind can do that. This is not denial. It's not passivity. It's power. Buddha's inner revolution 2,500 years ago, the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, not to escape the world, but to understand the root of suffering. He realized something radical. We don't suffer because of what happens. We suffer because of how we interpret and react to what happens. That's the seed of inner freedom. Let's bring this to life. Imagine someone insults you. The words are harsh. If you immediately react, feel angry, lash out, stew in bitterness, your mind becomes a battlefield. But the Buddha asks us, where did that suffering actually arise? From the insult or from your identification with it? You might say, but they disrespected me. And the Buddha would ask, who is this me you're defending? Now that's not just a spiritual riddle, it's a door to transformation. Modern psychology agrees. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, echoes this insight. Psychologist Albert Ellis explained that we're not disturbed by events, but by our beliefs about those events. If someone calls you a failure and you believe it, suffering arises. But if you're rooted in your own worth, the insult is like a breeze against a mountain. You hear it, but you're not moved. This is the practice of emotional detachment, not in the cold, avoidant sense, but in the Buddhist sense of upekkha, equanimity, the strength to stay steady in the storm. A Zen parable, the empty boat. Here's a story that captures this perfectly. A monk was meditating on a lake in a small boat. Suddenly, another boat crashed into his. He opened his eyes, furious, only to see the other boat was empty. The anger vanished. He realized the anger came not from the crash, but from the assumption that someone did it to him. This is the heart of the teaching. Our reactions are based on projections, assumptions, and ego. Strip those away, and even conflict becomes neutral. The social media test. Let's modernize it. You post something meaningful online. Someone leaves a nasty comment. Do you get hooked? Do you spiral? Or do you pause, breathe, and realize this is a reflection of their state, not yours? You don't have to absorb their pain. This isn't just theory, it's practice, and it's hard, but every moment is an opportunity to reclaim your mind. What does Buddhism teach us here? The Buddha taught that craving and aversion are the roots of suffering, and both arise from identification with thoughts. So when someone says something hurtful and you crave validation or reject the criticism, suffering arises. But if you can watch the reaction arise without clinging or pushing, you step into freedom. This is not apathy, it's awareness. It's choosing to respond rather than react. As the Dhammapada says, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. You become what you attach to, but let go and you become limitless. Part 2, the power of perception. Why reality is filtered through your mind. Let's get real, there is no such thing as a purely objective experience. Every single event you go through is filtered through your mindset, your beliefs, your emotions, and your past conditioning. Buddhism calls this sanya, perception, and it's one of the 5 aggregates that make up what we call the self. So when someone cuts you off in traffic, what happens isn't you got disrespected. What happens is your mind interprets that event as an attack, a slight, a threat to your dignity. And that interpretation triggers anger. But here's the kicker. A monk sitting in the same traffic, cut off the same way, might feel compassion instead. So which version is real? Neuroscience catches up with Buddhism. Modern neuroscience has a term for this: predictive processing. The brain isn't just a passive observer. It constantly predicts what's happening based on past experience, and then filters current events through those predictions. That's why 2 people can go through the same breakup and one grows while the other collapses. It's not the event, it's the inner lens. This echoes the Buddhist insight. Your suffering doesn't come from the world, it comes from your attachment to how you think the world should be. The Buddha versus the world. Remember when the Buddha was insulted by a Brahmin? The Brahmin unleashed a storm of angry words, but the Buddha, calm as still water, responded, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The Brahmin was stunned. The Buddha had made a point that could take lifetimes to realize. When you refuse to take in another's poison, it has nowhere to go but back to them. Practice watching without absorbing. Here's a simple but life-changing meditation. Next time someone criticizes you, pause. Feel the emotion arise. Don't suppress it. Just watch it. Ask, what story am I telling myself about this? And then ask, can I let this story go? And this is mindfulness in action. You're rewiring your brain not to deny reality, but to liberate yourself from reactivity. And this is why monks in Himalayan monasteries can sit in freezing cold for hours with joy while we sit in air-conditioned rooms stewing in stress. It's not about comfort, it's about consciousness. The analogy of the mirror. In Zen Buddhism, the enlightened mind is often compared to a mirror. It reflects everything: praise, blame, beauty, ugliness, but it holds on to nothing. What if you could become that mirror? Think about it. Someone says you're brilliant, you feel good. Someone says you're useless, you feel crushed. But in both cases, your peace depends on others' words. That's not freedom, that's slavery dressed as self-worth. Buddhism invites us to go deeper, to see through the illusion, and to realize your worth is not up for negotiation. Part 3, the myth of control. Why letting go sets you free. Let's be honest. Most of our daily stress doesn't come from what happens. It comes from the illusion that we're supposed to be able to control it all. Control over how people treat us. Control over what others think. Control over outcomes. Control over how life unfolds. And when reality doesn't match that illusion, we feel frustration, anxiety, even despair. The Buddha's shocking insight. In the Anatalakkhana Sutta, the Buddha dismantled this illusion at its core. He pointed to the body, the feelings, the mind, and asked, can you say to any of these, let it be thus, let it not be thus? No. You can't control how your body ages. You can't dictate your moods. You can't force your mind to obey you. And if you can't control it, how can it be you? This insight isn't meant to depress you, it's meant to liberate you. Because when you realize you're not in control of most things, you also realize you don't have to be. The control trap, a modern disease. Think about it. We micromanage our schedules. We obsess over likes and comments. We create 5-year plans and expect the universe to cooperate. But what happens when life laughs in our face? We collapse because we thought control meant security. But Buddhism and even modern psychology say the opposite. The more you try to control, the more fear you create. Because you're clinging to what was never yours in the first place. Letting go is not giving up, it's waking up. People hear letting go and think it's weakness. But in Buddhist terms, letting go is not resignation, it's freedom. It means you stop fighting reality. It means you meet life as it is, not as your ego demands it to be. There's a profound teaching from the Dhammapada. Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present. With a heart that is free, cross over to the other shore. This other shore is the awakened mind, the mind that moves through life without clinging. Imagine going through your day with that kind of mind. No clinging to praise, no panic at failure, no chains of should and must. Just presence, just peace. Real world, from control to courage. Let's bring this down to earth. Steve Jobs, yes, the visionary behind Apple, once said in his Stanford speech, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." That's not control, that's surrender. And it's echoed in the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. So whether it's the Buddha or a billionaire, the message is the same. Control is not power. Letting go is. Part 4, Emotional Armor. How Buddhism teaches you to feel without being ruled emotions. They rise like waves, sometimes gentle like joy or awe, sometimes crashing, anger, grief, fear. We try to run from them, suppress them, like drown them in distractions. Or we let them run us, turning us into slaves to every impulse. But Buddhism offers a third path. Not escape, not surrender, but observation. Mindfulness, the ancient superpower. What the Buddha discovered beneath the Bodhi tree wasn't a way to numb emotions. It was a way to see through them. He called it sati, mindfulness, a deep, clear awareness that doesn't judge or react. When anger arises, don't push it away or act it out. Just note, this is anger. Watch how it feels in the body, see the thoughts it brings, and most importantly, don't identify with it. You are not the anger. You are the space in which anger appears and disappears. As Ajahn Chah said, you see the anger coming, you smile at it, you know it will go away. This is emotional armor, not the kind that blocks feeling, but the kind that keeps you from being pierced by it. Neuroscience meets the sutras. What's fascinating is that modern neuroscience now confirms what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Studies at UCLA show that when we label our emotions, literally say this is sadness or this is fear, we activate parts of the brain linked to regulation, not reactivity. Just naming what we feel actually calms the storm. The Buddhist practice of noting emotions does just that. And over time, as mindfulness deepens, we build a gap between stimulus and response, a space of clarity where choice exists. This is what Viktor Frankl meant when he said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. From reaction to liberation. So how do we apply this emotionally in real life? Let's say someone insults you. The old habit is automatic: rage, defensiveness, retaliation. But a Buddhist-trained mind pauses, not to be passive, but to see clearly. What is this feeling? Where is it in the body? What story is the mind spinning? With awareness, the emotional fire begins to cool. You're no longer reacting. You're responding from wisdom, not wound. This is what the Buddha called virya, spiritual energy, not to fight emotion, but to sit with it, transform it, and let it pass like clouds in a vast sky. The real warrior's path. In our world, being emotional is often seen as weakness. But the Buddha flipped that idea completely. He taught that true strength is not suppression, but containment, to feel fully without being ruled. As the Dhammapada says, he who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers 1,000 men in battle. And what is this self we must conquer? The craving, the anger, the fear that clings to identity and reacts to every wound. When you become the observer of emotion rather than its hostage, you don't become cold, you become free. Part 5. Karma isn't fate, it's freedom in disguise. Karma, one of the most misunderstood concepts in Buddhism and in life. In pop culture, karma is served cold, a cosmic revenge system. You get what's coming to you. You must have done something bad in a past life. But in truth, karma isn't retribution, it's responsibility. And more than that, it's freedom. Let's unpack this layer by layer, what karma really means. The word karma literally means action, not punishment, not destiny, just action and its consequences. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, "Intention, I tell you, is karma. Intending, one does karma by body, speech, and mind." It's not what happens to you, it's what you do, how you think, speak, and act. And every one of those actions plants a seed. Some sprout instantly, some lie dormant, but all shape the landscape of your mind and your life. You're not a prisoner of the past. Here's the good news. Karma isn't fixed. Just because you made mistakes in the past, this life or 1,000 before, doesn't mean you're doomed. The Buddha was clear. The present moment is more powerful than your past. In the Majjhima Nikaya, he compares karma to salt in water. If you put a spoon of salt in a small cup, it's undrinkable. But put that same spoon in a vast lake, you barely notice it. Your awareness, your practice, your intentions can make your life a vast lake. This means your past doesn't define you. Your mindfulness now does. Karma as a mirror, not a hammer. Think about karma like a mirror. If you feel anger constantly, it might not be the world. It might be the mind you're carrying. If you meet kindness wherever you go, it's not luck. It's the echo of how you walk through life. Karma reflects, it doesn't punish. So instead of, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? What am I planting now? Every thought is a seed. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And that's where the magic lies. You get to vote every day. Real freedom is responsibility. Western psychology is catching up here. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most powerful tools for mental health, is built on this same insight. Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions shape your actions. Your actions build your life. Sound familiar? That's karma. And once you see it, you realize you're not a victim. You're not trapped. You're an artist with every brushstroke shaping your future. Even Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, echoed this when he wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Karma isn't fate, it's the freedom to choose differently. Even if you've lived a life of anger, today you can plant peace. Even if you've hurt others, this moment you can choose compassion. And when you do that, you don't just change your path, you transform your destiny. Part 6, detachment versus indifference, the subtle power of caring without clinging. One of the most misunderstood Buddhist teachings is detachment. To many people, it sounds cold, detached. Isn't that the same as being indifferent? Isn't that just not caring? Not at all. True detachment isn't apathy. It's the purest form of love. Let's unpack this with depth, because this subtle teaching can change not only how you love others, but how you live with yourself. The lotus and the mud. In Buddhist symbolism, the lotus flower is sacred. Why? Because it grows in mud, but rises above it. It doesn't fight the mud, it just doesn't cling to it. That's detachment. It's not that the lotus hates the mud, it simply isn't stuck. When the Buddha taught detachment, he wasn't saying stop loving, he was saying stop clinging. There's a vast difference. Clinging says, I need you to be happy. I can't live without this job. If I lose this, I'm nothing. But detachment says, I love you and I set you free. I care, but I don't control. I show up fully, but I don't hold on out of fear. One suffocates, the other liberates. Clinging comes from fear. Detachment comes from wisdom. Let's be honest. Most of our suffering comes not from loss itself, but from our attachment to what we hoped would stay. Think of relationships. How often do we confuse love with possession? I love you becomes you belong to me. And when they change or leave or die, we collapse. But the truth is, all things change, people evolve, situations shift, bodies age, life flows, and when we cling, we fight this truth. But when we detach, we align with it. In psychology, this aligns with secure attachment theory. The healthiest relationships are those where each person is emotionally grounded, not dependent. That's what Buddhist detachment teaches. Love without control, care without fear, connection without chains. A story of the Buddha's tears. Here's a powerful story you don't hear often. One day, the Buddha's son, Rahula, was seriously ill. His disciples noticed the Buddha sitting silently, tears in his eyes. They asked, "Lord, are you suffering?" The Buddha replied gently, "Yes, even though I have awakened, this body still feels, this heart still loves." Even the Buddha felt sadness, but he didn't resist it. He didn't collapse into it. He let it pass through him like wind through trees. That's the subtle power of caring without clinging, to love fully but hold lightly, to give your heart but not lose your center. Letting go is the most loving thing you can do. Think about a parent watching their child grow up. At some point, they must let go. Let them fall, let them rise, let them become. Holding on too tightly, trying to fix, manage, control, comes from fear. But releasing them, that comes from love, a deep trust in life's unfolding. The same applies to everything. A job, a partner, a body that's aging, a past you can't rewrite. When you stop clinging, you don't stop caring, you start loving wisely. Because love that needs something in return isn't love, it's a contract. But love that flows freely, like a river, expecting nothing, is what the Buddha called metta, boundless, joyful, untouched by fear. Indifference is ice, detachment is fire with boundaries. So let's be clear. Indifference says, I don't care what happens. Detachment says, I care deeply, but I'm not controlled by the outcome. Indifference is numbness. Detachment is maturity. Indifference withdraws, detachment witnesses. And here's the paradox. The less you cling, the more you can truly love. Because now your love is rooted in presence, not in possession. Part 7, How to be Untouchable, Building an Inner Fortress Without Losing Your Heart. We've all heard phrases like, don't let them get to you, be strong, grow a thick skin. But here's the paradox of real inner power. True strength isn't about building walls, it's about cultivating depth. And in Buddhism, the ultimate protection isn't armor, it's awareness. The misunderstood warrior, people often imagine inner strength as cold, steely, invulnerable. But that's not the Buddhist path. The Buddha never taught us to numb out or shut down. He didn't say become stone, he said become like space. Invulnerable, not because nothing touches you, but because nothing sticks. This is the true fortress, not walls of fear, but a mind like sky, vast, open, and free. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Let's revisit this classic Buddhist teaching. Pain is a part of life. You will be criticized, you will be misunderstood, you will experience loss, but suffering, the mental anguish we add on top, is often self-inflicted. Think of it like this. The world might throw arrows, but whether they penetrate depends on your inner state. This is where Buddhism offers a revolutionary idea. You can become untouchable, not by being hard, but by being wise. Equanimity, the calm in the storm. One of the 4 immeasurables in Buddhism is equanimity. It's not detachment in the cold sense, it's balance. Imagine standing in the eye of a hurricane, calm, centered, unmoved. Not because the storm isn't raging, but because you've anchored yourself. This isn't passivity, it's poise. It's choosing your response instead of being yanked by emotion. Psychologically, this aligns with emotional regulation, a sign of high emotional intelligence. It's the ability to feel everything but not be ruled by anything. That's the inner fortress. Buddha's poise in the face of insult. There's a beautiful story that illustrates this. One day, a man came to the Buddha, angry and yelling insults. The Buddha simply listened, calm, silent. When the man finished, the Buddha said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man, confused, said, "To the one who offered it." "Exactly," said the Buddha. "I do not accept your anger." That's mastery, not repression, not counterattack, just clarity. The Buddha didn't shut down his heart. He just didn't let poison in. And you can do the same. Boundaries are compassion in action. Let's be clear. Being untouchable doesn't mean being a doormat. In Buddhism, compassion is not weakness, it's strength with wisdom. And part of that wisdom is knowing when to walk away. You can say, "I see your pain, but I will not let it destroy my peace. I can forgive you and still protect my energy. I love myself enough to leave." This is where Buddhist practice meets real-world empowerment. It teaches you to hold both truths. Open heart, clear boundaries, inner strength isn't the absence of emotion, it's mastery over reaction. Think of the Dalai Lama. He laughs often, he cries with ease, but he's unshakable. Why? Because his strength comes from inside out. He meditates daily. He knows his mind. He's built a fortress, not around his heart, but within his awareness. And you can too. Every time you meditate, every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose compassion over revenge, you're laying one more brick in that inner sanctuary, not to hide, but to rise. Part 8, the middle way, where peace and power meet. In a world that thrives on extremes, the middle way sounds underwhelming. Moderation, balance, it doesn't exactly shout revolution. But here's the Buddhist truth. The middle way is not compromise. It's mastery. It's the razor's edge where peace and power don't just coexist, they enhance each other. The Buddha's awakening was born from balance. Before enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama tried it all. He indulged in royal luxury, fine food, silk sheets, endless comfort. Then he renounced it all, starving himself, sleeping on nails, nearly dying. Neither path led to awakening. Until one day, weak and near death, he heard a musician tuning a sitar. If the string is too tight, it will snap. If it's too loose, it won't play. Only the middle tension produces music. In that moment, he saw the truth, and thus the middle way was born. Not too tight. But if you believe that who you are is tied solely to these fleeting things, then when they change or disappear, you feel as if you disappear too. This is the root of all fear. Death isn't just the end of life, it's the end of who we think we are. But here's the liberating truth that Buddhism teaches. You are not what you have. You are not what you do. You are the awareness behind it all. And this awareness, this true self, never dies. Buddhism's take on death, it's just another step. The Buddha's teachings on death are as much about living as they are about dying. The Buddha didn't spend all his time contemplating the afterlife. He spent his life teaching people how to live fully in the present, because that's where freedom is found. The key isn't about avoiding death, it's about seeing through it. As the Buddha taught, everything is in flux. Our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, none of these are permanent. They rise, they fall, and in between that rise and fall is the beauty of life. In the face of death, Buddhism asks us to live with awareness. Awareness that each breath is precious, each moment fleeting. When we see impermanence clearly, we stop wasting time. The impermanence of loss, how letting go makes space for life. Loss is one of the most painful experiences we face. We lose loved ones, we lose opportunities, we lose things we thought we could hold on to forever. But here's what Buddhism teaches about loss. It is an opportunity to let go. When we lose, we are confronted with the fact that our attachment to what was no longer serves us. Loss isn't a curse, it's a moment of transformation. We have the chance to open up to what is new, to embrace the present moment without clinging. This doesn't mean we become cold or detached from our emotions. In fact, Buddhism encourages us to feel deeply, but without the weight of attachment. The beauty in impermanence. Here's the paradox. The very impermanence we fear is the source of life's beauty. Consider a flower blooming. Its petals last only a few days, but in that brief time, it's radiant, vibrant, and full of life. Had the flower stayed forever, would we admire it as much? The fleeting nature of life makes it precious. It gives us the urgency to live now, to love now, to create, to act, and to experience the world in its fullest expression. This is the beauty of impermanence. It reminds us that every moment is precious. Death as a teacher. How to live with awareness. The ancient Tibetan practice of contemplating death isn't morbid, it's clarifying. By meditating on the impermanence of life, we see the truth of our existence. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. We don't control when our last breath will be, but we can control how we live today. And once we accept that death is inevitable, we start to live with more meaning. We focus on what truly matters. Buddhism teaches us that death is not an enemy to be avoided. It's a teacher. It helps us keep perspective. It encourages us to not waste time on trivial things. In the face of death, we are reminded to cultivate peace, love, and wisdom. How to embrace impermanence in your life. 1. Reflect on the present moment. Regularly ask yourself, what can I do right now that brings me peace, that brings me joy, that leaves a positive impact? 2. Embrace loss without attachment. When you lose something or someone, feel the pain, but don't identify with it. Let it flow through you without holding on to it. 3. Celebrate life's transience. Find beauty in the fleeting nature of things. Appreciate the now, knowing that it too will pass. 4. Practice mindfulness. Be present. Be aware. Don't get caught up in the endless cycle of craving and aversion. Just observe and allow. In the end, it's all part of the cycle. In the final analysis, death isn't a tragedy. It's part of the flow of life. It's the night that makes the day beautiful. It's the winter that makes spring sweet. It's the ending that makes the new beginning possible. We don't need to fear it. We need to live in harmony with it. Conclusion: the true gift of impermanence. Death, loss, and change. They show us the preciousness of life. They remind us that life is a gift we can't take for granted. When we live with awareness of impermanence, we open ourselves to the fullness of life. We can love more deeply, laugh more freely, and face challenges with greater courage. Because in the end, we don't remember the things we held on to. We remember the moments we embraced fully, the love we gave, the joy we shared, and the peace we cultivated. Part 10. The power of compassion. How loving others frees you from yourself. The secret to peace, joy, and liberation isn't found in acquiring things or advancing personal goals. It's found in giving. In giving love, in showing compassion, in freeing others, we free ourselves. This is the central teaching of the Buddha. True freedom comes from selflessness. Compassion, the heart of Buddhist practice. At the heart of the Buddha's teachings lies compassion, known in Sanskrit as karuna. But what exactly is compassion? It's not just sympathy. It's not just feeling bad for someone else's pain. True compassion is the active wish that all beings be free from suffering. It's the desire to relieve pain, not only for those we love, but for every sentient being. Compassion isn't selective. It's all-encompassing. In Buddhism, compassion is a mental attitude, a practice that we cultivate, refine, and develop. It's not about grand gestures of charity. It's about bringing an open heart to our everyday interactions. It's about seeing others as they are and wishing them well, even when they don't deserve it. The self and the illusion of separation. One of the core insights of Buddhism is the illusory nature of the self. We tend to believe that we are separate from others, distinct, isolated. This illusion of separateness is what creates suffering. We see ourselves as the center of the universe, and naturally everything revolves around us. But here's the paradox. We are interconnected. Every action we take, every word we speak, every thought we have ripples out and affects those around us. What we do to others, we do to ourselves. The more we cling to the idea of an isolated individual self, the more we suffer. But when we practice compassion, we realize that the self is not a solitary island. It's part of a vast ocean of beings, each one linked by the same desire for happiness and freedom from suffering. In this realization, we begin to see that when we love others, we love ourselves. Compassion as freedom from self-centeredness. Now, let's explore the great paradox of selflessness. When we focus entirely on the welfare of others, we become free. Think about it. When we're consumed by self-concern, whether it's our career, our body, our possessions, our reputation, we are constantly in conflict. We are always measuring ourselves against others, comparing, competing, and fearing that we're not enough. But when we shift our focus outward, when we move away from our own ego and invest in the well-being of others, something remarkable happens. We liberate ourselves from the prison of self-preoccupation. Compassion isn't a sacrifice, it's a gateway to freedom. When we give ourselves to others, we transcend our own limitations, our own fears, our own suffering. The Buddha's model, the Bodhisattva path. In Buddhist teachings, the highest ideal is the Bodhisattva, someone who has reached enlightenment but chooses to remain in the world in order to help all beings reach liberation. The Bodhisattva embodies compassion in action. They don't withdraw from suffering, they move toward it. They see the world's pain, and rather than turning away, they open their heart and extend their hands to help. What's important about the Bodhisattva is that their compassion is not motivated by guilt or duty. It's driven by a deep joy in helping others. The more they give, the more they expand their own heart. The more they serve others, the more their own liberation becomes a reality. The Bodhisattva teaches us that helping others is the truest form of self-help. Compassion in action, what it looks like. So, how do we practice compassion in our daily lives? 1. Start with empathy. Compassion begins with the ability to understand the suffering of others. It's about stepping into someone else's shoes without judgment, with openness and care. 2. Practice loving kindness, metta. The practice of metta is about cultivating a kind, loving attitude toward everyone, whether they are family, friends, or strangers. It's about wishing them happiness and peace without attachment to the outcome. 3. Be present for others. Compassion doesn't always require big gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as being present for someone who's in pain. Offering a listening ear, a warm embrace, or a kind word can make all the difference. 4. Let go of expectations. When we give, we often expect something in return. But true compassion is selfless. When you help others, do it without expecting recognition or reward. Your joy should come from the act of giving itself, not from any external validation. The joy of giving, how compassion heals us. What's fascinating is that giving isn't a sacrifice, it's a joy. The more we give, the more we realize that we need less to be happy. By focusing on others, we discover that we don't have to chase our own happiness. It comes naturally when we serve the happiness of others. Buddhist teachings often compare compassion to water. The more you give, the more it flows. And the most beautiful part of it all is that in giving, we create genuine bonds with others. In serving, we become one with them. There's no longer a sense of separation. There's no you and me. There's just us. Compassion as the path to true freedom. We often think of freedom as the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But in Buddhism, freedom is the ability to be free from the tyranny of the self. When we're no longer obsessed with our own desires, fears, and egos, we can be truly free. And this freedom is achieved through compassion. It's in giving, it's in loving others, it's in seeing the world through the eyes of others. True freedom comes when we can love without clinging, give without attachment, and serve without expecting anything in return. Conclusion: the true power of compassion. In the end, compassion is not just a moral virtue or a noble ideal. It's a practical path to liberation. By giving love, we become free from the limitations of our own ego. By helping others, we discover that we are connected to everything and everyone. When we focus on others, we expand our hearts, And in that expansion, we experience the greatest freedom of all, the freedom from self-centeredness, the freedom to live in peace, and the freedom to truly love. Part 11, The Ultimate Journey, Embracing the Unknown with Courage and Wisdom. Life is a mystery. We don't know what's coming next, and yet in the face of uncertainty, we constantly strive to control, predict, and secure our future. But true freedom, true wisdom, lies in embracing the unknown. In Buddhist philosophy, this idea is a key element of the path toward enlightenment. To find peace, we must learn to face life's uncertainties with courage and wisdom. The fear of the unknown, why we resist change. One of the fundamental sources of suffering in life is our fear of the unknown. We are hardwired to seek safety and stability, and that often means trying to predict, control, or manipulate the future. This gives us a false sense of security, a belief that if we can plan everything, we can avoid failure or pain. But here's the catch. Life is unpredictable. We can make all the plans we want, but the only thing we can truly rely on is change itself. Everything is impermanent. Yet, despite this, we resist change. We fear the unknown because we don't know how to navigate it. We fear uncertainty because we think it means we are out of control. But it's in this very uncertainty that true freedom lies. Buddhist wisdom, the path of acceptance. The Buddha's path isn't about eliminating uncertainty or achieving perfect control. It's about learning to accept and embrace uncertainty. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means meeting life with an open heart, willing to engage with whatever arises without clinging to any particular outcome. In Buddhism, there's a teaching called anicca, the law of impermanence. This teaching tells us that nothing in life is permanent. Everything is constantly changing, evolving, and fading away. Understanding and accepting this impermanence can bring us peace, because we no longer try to cling to things or control the uncontrollable. Instead of fearing the unknown, Buddhism teaches us to embrace it as an essential part of our journey toward awakening. The courage to let go, freedom in surrender. When we stop resisting the unknown, we experience a kind of freedom. The fear of the unknown comes from attachment to what we think should happen. We have a specific vision of how our lives should unfold. And when things don't go according to plan, we feel lost, anxious, or disappointed. But by practicing the Buddhist teachings of letting go and surrender, we begin to experience freedom. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the tight grip we have on expectations, outcomes, and even our own identities. It means surrendering to the flow of life, trusting that what we need will unfold in its own time. In doing so, we open ourselves to the wisdom of the present moment, the only moment that truly exists, embracing uncertainty with wisdom. The journey toward enlightenment requires us to navigate life's uncertainties with both courage and wisdom. Courage is needed to step into the unknown with an open heart, even when we can't see what lies ahead. It's the courage to take risks, to fail, and to learn. But wisdom is what guides us on that journey. Wisdom teaches us to approach the unknown not with fear, but with an attitude of curiosity. When we face uncertainty, we don't know what will happen, but we do know that we can trust ourselves to deal with whatever comes. This wisdom comes from understanding that life itself is a teacher. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, is an opportunity to grow and learn. By embracing the unknown with openness and a willingness to learn, we step into the flow of life with confidence. The Buddha's example, living without attachment. The Buddha himself is the perfect example of someone who embraced the unknown with courage and wisdom. When he left his royal life behind, he didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know what he would find through meditation, self-reflection, or years of wandering. But he had the courage to seek, to question, and to explore. He was willing to let go of all attachments to his identity, his past, his position in life, in order to find the truth. And in doing so, he found that the truth was not something to be grasped or controlled, it was something to be experienced. Trusting the journey, letting life be your guide. The ultimate journey isn't about reaching a fixed destination. It's about the process of becoming, of being willing to step into the unknown and trust that we are being guided by forces greater than ourselves. This trust is not blind faith. It's trust rooted in wisdom. The understanding that everything, even our most difficult experiences, has something to teach us. By trusting the journey, we stop resisting and start flowing with life. This is the essence of Buddhist practice. It's not about finding an answer to every question or controlling every outcome. It's about learning to live fully, without fear or attachment in the face of uncertainty. The paradox of control and freedom. The more we try to control life, the more we feel its weight pressing down on us. But when we let go of that need to control, we experience true freedom. The paradox is clear. Freedom comes not from controlling life, but from letting it be as it is. The wisdom here is not to avoid the unknown, but to meet it with acceptance. By embracing the unknown with courage, we free ourselves from the tyranny of expectation and step into a life that is rich with possibility. Conclusion: embrace the unknown, embrace freedom. The ultimate journey to enlightenment requires us to embrace life in all its uncertainty. By cultivating courage and wisdom, we learn to navigate the unknown with grace, trusting that every step, no matter how uncertain, is a step toward liberation. When we stop resisting life's unpredictability, we open ourselves to the magic of the present moment, where freedom, peace, and wisdom exist. In this space, we discover that the greatest adventure is not in controlling the unknown, but in embracing it with an open heart. The unknown is not something to fear, it's something to celebrate. Part 12, the freedom of non-attachment, why letting go is the key to happiness. In the pursuit of happiness, many of us search for it in external things, possessions, relationships, achievements. We believe that if we just acquire enough, we'll finally feel content. But true happiness, according to Buddhism, doesn't come from holding on, it comes from letting go. In this chapter, we dive deep into the power of non-attachment, exploring how letting go of our clinging to things, people, possessions, even our own identity, can lead us to a profound sense of peace and freedom. What is non-attachment? At its core, non-attachment is the ability to live life fully without becoming overly attached to any particular outcome. This doesn't mean we stop caring or stop engaging with the world around us. In fact, non-attachment is about caring deeply while also recognizing the impermanence of everything we care about. Non-attachment allows us to appreciate life without being controlled by it. It means releasing the need to possess, to cling, or to make things stay the way we want them to. Non-attachment is not about detachment in the sense of becoming cold or indifferent to others, but about being able to love freely without fearing loss. The paradox of attachment. We often hear that we should pursue happiness, but how do we truly define happiness? Is it tied to the things we accumulate, the success we achieve, the relationships we cherish? The paradox is that attachment, the very thing we seek, often leads us to suffering. When we attach ourselves to something, whether it's a person, a goal, a possession, or even a self-image, we begin to fear losing it. This fear creates anxiety, stress, and even despair. We cling because we believe that happiness lies in what we have, but in truth, happiness lies in our ability to be free from the need to hold on. The Buddha's teachings on attachment. The Buddha taught that attachment is one of the root causes of suffering. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha explained that suffering arises because we are attached to things that are impermanent. We grasp at life, trying to hold on to it, even when it's constantly changing. Attachment leads to clinging, which creates desire. The desire to possess, to control, or to retain leads to frustration because we can't control the course of our lives. Everything from our bodies to our relationships is in a state of constant flux. The Buddha's answer to this dilemma is the middle way, a path that teaches us how to live fully without becoming attached to the things of this world. It's about engagement without clinging. The joy of letting go. Non-attachment doesn't mean rejection or renunciation of the world. It means releasing our hold on it. When we let go of our attachment to things, we free ourselves from the burden of expectation. We no longer tie our happiness to external circumstances, which are beyond our control. In this freedom, we discover a joy that doesn't depend on what we have or don't have. This joy is rooted in being present, in fully experiencing each moment as it is. It's the kind of happiness that arises when we release the need to chase after things, and instead we embrace the present, knowing that everything is transient. Letting go creates space within us, a space where peace, love, and joy can flourish without the interference of attachment. The art of letting go, practical tips for non-attachment. How can we cultivate non-attachment in our daily lives? It's not an easy task, especially in a world that constantly tells us to accumulate, achieve, and possess. Here are some practical ways to begin practicing non-attachment. 1. Practice mindfulness. By being present in the moment, we stop worrying about the future or ruminating on the past. Mindfulness helps us see the transient nature of all things. Number 2. Recognize impermanence. Everything in life is fleeting. When we realize that nothing lasts forever, we begin to understand that clinging to anything will only lead to suffering. 3. Let go of expectations. Attachments often arise from our expectations. We expect certain outcomes from situations or people, and when they don't meet those expectations, we feel disappointed. Try to release these expectations and embrace whatever happens. 4. Cultivate compassion. Compassion doesn't mean holding on to others. It means loving them freely without any strings attached. By caring for others without expecting anything in return, we free ourselves from the bondage of attachment. 5. Embrace change. Change is inevitable, and rather than resisting it, we can learn to flow with it. When we resist change, we create suffering. When we accept it, we experience peace. The benefits of non-attachment. As we practice non-attachment, we begin to experience the many benefits it offers. 1. Inner peace. Non-attachment allows us to find peace regardless of what is happening around us. We stop relying on external circumstances for our happiness and begin to find joy within. 2. Freedom. We free ourselves from the cycle of desire and fear. No longer tied to specific outcomes or possessions, we live with a lightness that comes from knowing we have everything we need already. 3. Resilience. Non-attachment gives us the strength to face life's challenges without being overwhelmed by them. When we aren't clinging to specific outcomes, we are better able to adapt to whatever life presents us. 4. Authenticity. By letting go of our attachment to our self-image, we become more authentic. We no longer need to prove ourselves to others or cling to who we think we should be. We simply are. The Buddha's final words, letting go of the self. The Buddha's final words before his passing were a reminder of the power of non-attachment. All compounded things are subject to decay. Strive with diligence. In these words, the Buddha spoke to the impermanence of life and the importance of letting go. The ultimate goal of Buddhist practice is not to cling to anything, whether it's possessions, relationships, or even the concept of self. When we let go of the ego, we realize our connection to all beings and all things, and in that realization, we find true freedom. Conclusion. The path to true happiness. Non-attachment is not about detaching from life. It's about engaging with life fully without becoming enslaved by it. It's about loving, giving, and living with an open heart that while understanding that nothing in this world is permanent. When we let go of our attachments, we experience a profound sense of freedom and joy. True happiness doesn't come from accumulating more or holding on tighter. It comes from letting go, trusting the flow of life, and embracing the present moment with an open heart. Part 13. The power of mindfulness. How living in the present transforms your life. In a world that constantly demands our attention, it's easy to get lost in a cycle of stress, anxiety, and distraction. Our minds race between past regrets and future worries, leaving little room for the present moment. But there's a powerful antidote to this constant mental turmoil: mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just a buzzword, it's a practice that can radically transform the way we experience life. By training ourselves to be fully present in each moment, we can break free from the grip of our thoughts, emotions, and external distractions. In this chapter, we'll explore the power of mindfulness, how it allows us to live more fully, and how it can help us overcome the cycle of attachment and desire. What is mindfulness? At its core, mindfulness is the practice of paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. It involves observing your thoughts, emotions, and sensations with an open and accepting attitude, without trying to control or change them. Instead of getting caught up in our inner narratives or reacting impulsively, mindfulness teaches us to simply be aware of what is happening right now. This may sound simple, but in our fast-paced world, being fully present is often much more challenging than we think. We're constantly pulled in multiple directions, worrying about the future, dwelling on the past, or becoming absorbed in the distractions of daily life. Mindfulness helps us break free from this cycle, bringing us back to the here and now. The Buddha and mindfulness. The Buddha is often referred to as the awakened one, and his path to enlightenment was grounded in the practice of mindfulness. In the Satipatthana Sutta, one of the most important texts on mindfulness in Buddhism, the Buddha describes how mindfulness is central to the path of liberation. Mindfulness, according to the Buddha, is a way of observing the world with clarity and insight. It is not about escaping the world or retreating from it, but about seeing things as they truly are: impermanent, interconnected, and free from attachment. Through mindfulness, the Buddha teaches us to observe our thoughts and feelings without being swept away by them, to let go of judgment, and to cultivate an awareness that is both grounded in the present moment and free from the clutter of the mind. Mindfulness and the present moment. One of the core teachings of mindfulness is that we can only truly live in the present moment. The past is gone, and the future is not yet here. When we dwell on the past, we often find ourselves consumed by regrets, guilt, or nostalgia. When we worry about the future, we become anxious, fearful, and uncertain. But the present moment is the only time we can actually experience life. And when we are fully present, we see the world with clarity and peace, not clouded by the fog of past memories or future projections. Mindfulness is the practice of constantly bringing our attention back to the present, of returning to the here and now. In doing so, we stop wasting energy on things we cannot change, and instead, we invest that energy into experiencing life as it unfolds. How mindfulness can transform your life. Mindfulness is not just a mental exercise, it's a way of living. And when we bring mindfulness into our daily lives, it has profound effects on our happiness, well-being, and relationships. Here are some of the ways mindfulness can transform your life. 1. Reduces stress and anxiety. When we're not living in the present moment, our minds are often caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. These thoughts trigger stress and anxiety, which can negatively impact our physical and mental health. Mindfulness helps break this cycle by bringing us back to the present moment. By focusing on our breath, sensations, or surroundings, we can calm the mind and reduce the stress response. Studies have shown that regular mindfulness practice lowers levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, and can help alleviate symptoms of anxiety and depression. 2. Increases emotional resilience. Mindfulness helps us develop emotional resilience by allowing us to observe our emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. Rather than reacting impulsively to a difficult situation, mindfulness helps us create space between stimulus and response. This space allows us to choose how we respond to our emotions, rather than being at the mercy of them. Over time, this builds emotional strength and the ability to navigate life's challenges with greater ease. 3. Improves focus and concentration. When our minds are constantly jumping from thought to thought, it's difficult to focus on anything for an extended period of time. Mindfulness trains us to bring our full attention to the present, improving our ability to concentrate and focus. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or in creative pursuits, mindfulness helps us stay engaged in what we're doing without getting distracted. Number 4, enhances relationships. Mindfulness also has a powerful impact on our relationships. When we're fully present with others, we listen more attentively, respond more compassionately, and are less likely to judge or react defensively. By practicing mindfulness, we become more attuned to the needs and feelings of those around us, which leads to deeper, more meaningful connections. Whether in romantic relationships, friendships, or family dynamics, mindfulness helps us cultivate empathy and understanding. 5. Increases self-awareness. Mindfulness also helps us cultivate greater self-awareness. By regularly checking in with ourselves, we become more attuned to our thoughts, emotions, and habitual patterns of behavior. This increased awareness allows us to break free from unconscious habits, negative thought patterns, and limiting beliefs. With mindfulness, we begin to see ourselves clearly without the distortion of judgment or self-criticism. How to practice mindfulness. While mindfulness may seem simple, it takes practice to cultivate. Here are a few tips to help you integrate mindfulness into your life. 1. Start with your breath. A simple way to begin practicing mindfulness is to focus on your breath. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and then slowly release it. As you breathe, pay attention to the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. When your mind wanders, gently bring your focus back to the breath. 2. Practice mindful eating. Eating is a great opportunity to practice mindfulness. Instead of rushing through meals or eating mindlessly, take time to fully experience each bite. Notice the texture, taste, and smell of the food. This practice helps you savor the present moment and cultivate gratitude for what you're nourishing your body with. 3. Mindful walking or movement. Walking can be a meditative practice when done mindfully. Pay attention to each step, the movement of your body, and the sensations in your feet. This practice helps you become more aware of your body and grounded in the present moment. 4. Mindful listening. When engaging with others, practice mindful listening. Focus entirely on the other person without judgment or distraction. Listen deeply to their words, tone, and body language. This not only improves communication, but also strengthens relationships. Conclusion. The present moment is your gateway to freedom. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for living a life of clarity, peace, and freedom. By embracing the present moment and observing life as it unfolds, we can break free from the distractions of the past and future, reduce stress, and experience the world with greater depth and meaning. The Buddha taught that the path to liberation begins with mindfulness, the art of living fully in the moment. And in this practice, we find the freedom to be truly alive. Part 14, The Art of Inner Peace, How Meditation Becomes Your Anchor in Times of Chaos. Life is full of unpredictable challenges, distractions, and external pressures that can easily throw us off balance. In these chaotic moments, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, lost, or even helpless. But what if there were a way to cultivate a sense of peace and stability, no matter what's happening around us? The answer lies in meditation. Meditation is not just a tool for relaxation or stress relief. It's a practice that allows us to develop deep inner peace that remains unshaken, even in the midst of turmoil. Through meditation, we train our minds to let go of distractions, quiet the noise of our thoughts, and connect to the calm that resides within us. In this chapter, we'll explore how meditation can become your anchor in times of chaos and how cultivating inner peace allows you to face life's challenges with greater clarity, strength, and resilience. What is meditation? Meditation is the practice of focusing the mind in a single direction, whether through breath, mantra, or contemplation, to bring about a state of deep concentration and awareness. At its core, meditation is about being present with what is, without judgment or attachment. It is about letting go of the constant chatter of the mind and resting in the stillness of the present moment. There are many forms of meditation, such as mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, or Zen meditation, but all share the same goal: to cultivate a deep, grounded sense of peace that can withstand the ups and downs of life. The Buddha and meditation. The Buddha's path to enlightenment was grounded in meditation. After years of searching for truth through ascetic practices, he discovered that the key to liberation lay not in extreme self-denial, but in cultivating a mind that was still and focused. In the Dhammapada, one of the most beloved texts in the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha speaks of the power of a calm and clear mind. You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. This teaching highlights the destructive power of a restless mind and how meditation can help us free ourselves from the endless cycles of negative emotions. Through meditation, the Buddha cultivated deep insight into the nature of existence. He learned to observe the impermanence of life, the interconnectedness of all beings, and the power of non-attachment. In his teachings, he emphasizes that meditation is a tool for overcoming suffering and achieving liberation. How meditation creates inner peace. Meditation works by training the mind to focus and calm the constant flow of thoughts. This creates space between our reactions and the external events that trigger them. By practicing meditation regularly, we develop the ability to be less reactive and more mindfully aware of what's happening around us and within us. 1. Calming the mind. One of the most immediate benefits of meditation is its ability to calm the mind. When we sit in stillness and focus on our breath or a mantra, the constant stream of thoughts gradually quiets down. Over time, meditation helps us cultivate a sense of inner stillness that we can tap into at any moment. This stillness becomes our refuge during stressful or challenging situations, allowing us to respond with clarity instead of being swept away by emotions. 2. Cultivating acceptance. Meditation teaches us to accept things as they are. Instead of trying to control our thoughts, emotions, or external circumstances, meditation encourages us to observe them without judgment. This shift in perspective allows us to let go of the need for things to be different and to simply accept the present moment. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means recognizing that the present moment is all we truly have. By accepting what is, we release the resistance that causes suffering and find peace. 3. Developing emotional resilience. The more we meditate, the more we develop emotional resilience. Meditation helps us become aware of our emotional reactions without being consumed by them. Instead of reacting impulsively to anger, frustration, or fear, we learn to pause, observe, and respond from a place of calmness. This ability to step back from our emotions empowers us to make wiser decisions, handle difficult situations with greater grace, and maintain a sense of stability, even in the face of adversity. Meditation and the chaos of life. One of the most profound aspects of meditation is its ability to anchor us during times of chaos. Life is full of uncertainty, whether it's a sudden challenge at work, a difficult relationship, or a personal crisis. In these moments, it's easy to become overwhelmed and lose our sense of balance. But meditation gives us a tool to reconnect with our inner peace, even when the world around us is in turmoil. When faced with challenging emotions or stressful situations, meditation helps us pause and ground ourselves in the present moment. Rather than getting swept away by our fears, anxieties, or anger, we can step back, breathe, and regain our clarity. This ability to remain calm amid chaos is not about suppressing emotions or avoiding difficult situations. It's about developing the inner strength to face challenges with wisdom and resilience. knowing that no matter what happens, we can always return to the peace within us. How to start a meditation practice. Meditation doesn't require any special skills or equipment, and anyone can start practicing. Here are a few tips to help you begin. 1. Find a quiet space. Choose a quiet, comfortable place where you can sit without distractions. This could be a corner of your home, a park, or any place where you feel at ease. 2. Focus on your breath. One of the simplest ways to meditate is to focus on your breath. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a deep breath in. Then exhale slowly. As you breathe, bring your attention to the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back to your breath. Start with short sessions. If you're new to meditation, start with just a few minutes each day. Gradually increase the length of your sessions as you become more comfortable with the practice. Even just 5 minutes of meditation can have a profound effect on your mental clarity and emotional well-being. 4. Be kind to yourself. Meditation is not about achieving perfection. It's about being present and accepting the process. Don't judge yourself if your mind wanders or if you find it difficult to sit still. Be patient and compassionate with yourself. The more you practice, the easier it will become. Conclusion: finding peace in the midst of chaos. Meditation is a powerful practice that allows us to cultivate inner peace, emotional resilience, and mental clarity. By regularly sitting in stillness and focusing on the present moment, we train our minds to let go of distractions and connect with the peace that lies within. This inner peace becomes our anchor in times of chaos, helping us navigate life's challenges with greater ease and wisdom. In the words of the Buddha, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. By embracing meditation, we can find this peace and carry it with us, no matter what life throws our way. Part 15, the art of self-compassion. How loving yourself unlocks your fullest potential. In a world where we're constantly pushed to do more, be more, and achieve more, it's easy to fall into the trap of harsh self-criticism. Many of us have internalized the idea that success and happiness come from perfection and constant striving. But what if the key to unlocking your fullest potential is not through relentless effort, but through kindness and compassion, especially toward yourself? In this chapter, we'll explore the transformative practice of self-compassion and how it can help you overcome the barriers that hold you back from living your best life. What is self-compassion? Self-compassion is the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness, care, and understanding that you would offer to a friend in times of struggle or difficulty. Rather than beating yourself up for your mistakes or imperfections, self-compassion invites you to acknowledge your challenges with warmth and patience. It involves 3 key components. 1. Self-kindness. Instead of being harsh and judgmental, you respond to your own struggles with warmth and care. 2. Common humanity. Recognizing that suffering is part of the human experience, and you're not alone in facing challenges. 3. Mindfulness. Being aware of your emotions and experiences without over-identifying with them or pushing them away. Together, these elements create a foundation of acceptance and emotional resilience, allowing you to approach yourself with understanding rather than criticism. The Buddha and self-compassion. While the Buddha's teachings emphasize the importance of cultivating wisdom, mindfulness, and compassion for others, they also point to the critical importance of cultivating compassion toward oneself. In Buddhist philosophy, loving kindness, known as metta, is an essential practice. It is not reserved solely for others, but is also directed inward as a means of fostering compassion and gentleness within. The Buddha taught that the foundation of true wisdom and compassion is rooted in self-love. Without it, we cannot fully extend compassion to others. If we are harsh with ourselves, we struggle to embrace the imperfections of others. It is through nurturing self-compassion that we build the emotional capacity to be present for others, without judgment, fear, or resentment. Why self-compassion matters. Self-compassion is more than just a feel-good practice. It has real, measurable benefits. Studies have shown that individuals who practice self-compassion experience greater emotional resilience. They are better equipped to handle stress and bounce back from adversity. Improved mental health. Self-compassion is linked to lower levels of anxiety, depression, and self-criticism. Better relationships. By treating themselves with kindness, individuals are more likely to treat others with the same level of respect and care. Increased motivation. Contrary to the belief that self-compassion leads to complacency, research shows that it actually fosters intrinsic motivation and encourages individuals to pursue goals with greater determination. Self-compassion enables us to show up as our authentic selves, free from the constraints of perfectionism and fear of failure. It's a practice that encourages growth, self-acceptance, and unshakable confidence. How self-compassion unlocks your full potential. When we learn to treat ourselves with compassion, we create a safe emotional space to grow, learn, and evolve. Self-compassion is not about complacency or letting ourselves off the hook. Rather, it's about acknowledging our imperfections and being gentle with ourselves as we work to improve. 1. Overcoming fear of failure. One of the most common reasons people hold themselves back is the fear of failure. Many of us have been taught to view failure as something shameful, something to be avoided at all costs. But self-compassion helps us reframe failure. Instead of seeing it as a reflection of our inadequacy, we learn to see failure as part of the learning process. When we fail with self-compassion, we can approach failure with curiosity rather than self-judgment. This shift allows us to take risks, embrace challenges, and ultimately grow from our experiences. 2. Breaking the cycle of perfectionism. Perfectionism can be paralyzing. It creates unrealistic standards, fosters self-doubt, and leads to burnout. Self-compassion offers an antidote to perfectionism. By learning to embrace our imperfections, we give ourselves permission to create, try, and fail without fear of judgment. When we practice self-compassion, we free ourselves from the need to be perfect, which opens the door to authentic self-expression and greater creativity. Number 3, cultivating greater emotional intelligence. Self-compassion helps us develop emotional intelligence. By acknowledging our emotions without judgment, we become more in tune with our inner world. Instead of suppressing difficult feelings or reacting impulsively, self-compassion encourages us to sit with our emotions, understand their root causes, and respond from a place of clarity. This practice not only improves our mental health, but also enhances our ability to navigate difficult situations and relationships with grace. 4. Building confidence and self-worth. When we are compassionate toward ourselves, we cultivate a sense of inherent worth and value. Rather than seeking validation from external sources, we learn to validate ourselves. This shift in mindset allows us to build confidence from within, which gives us the strength to pursue our goals, speak up for ourselves, and stand firm in our convictions. Self-compassion is the foundation of unshakable self-worth, which is essential for unlocking your fullest potential. How to practice self-compassion. Like meditation, self-compassion is a skill that requires practice. Here are some ways you can cultivate self-compassion in your daily life. 1. Treat yourself like a friend. Imagine how you would treat a friend who is going through a difficult time. Would you criticize them for their mistakes or offer them support and encouragement? Begin to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to others in need. 2. Acknowledge your pain. Rather than ignoring or suppressing your emotions, allow yourself to fully experience them. Mindfully acknowledge your struggles and give yourself permission to feel. Understand that pain is a part of being human, and it does not make you weak or inadequate. 3. Practice self-kindness during mistakes. When you make a mistake or experience failure, treat yourself with compassion. Instead of criticizing yourself, offer words of encouragement and comfort. Remind yourself that everyone makes mistakes and that you are worthy of love, even in moments of imperfection. 4. Use loving kindness meditations. Incorporate loving kindness meditations, metta, into your practice. These meditations help you cultivate feelings of warmth and compassion, first toward yourself and then toward others. A simple phrase like, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease, can be a powerful reminder to treat yourself with kindness. 5. Forgive yourself. Self-compassion involves forgiving yourself for past mistakes. Understand that you are not defined by your failures, but by your capacity to learn and grow from them. Release guilt and regret, and make space for healing. Conclusion: the transformative power of self-compassion. Self-compassion is one of the most powerful tools you can use to unlock your fullest potential. By treating yourself with kindness, patience, and understanding, you create a foundation of emotional resilience, confidence, and inner peace. Rather than being paralyzed by fear of failure or consumed by self-criticism, you give yourself permission to grow, evolve, and fully embrace your authentic self. In the words of the Buddha, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. By cultivating self-compassion, you unlock a deeper connection to your true potential, one that is grounded in unconditional self-acceptance and the wisdom that comes from embracing your imperfections. Part 16. The role of mindfulness in building lasting change. In a world full of distractions, it's easy to feel like we're constantly spinning our wheels, working hard yet seeing little progress. Whether it's personal growth, career goals, or relationships, the pursuit of lasting change often seems elusive. However, mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment, offers a powerful tool for creating lasting transformation. By bringing awareness to our thoughts, emotions, and actions, mindfulness helps us break old habits, create new patterns and foster a sense of inner peace that supports meaningful change. In this chapter, we'll explore how mindfulness works as a catalyst for change, why it's essential for lasting transformation, and practical tips for incorporating mindfulness into your life. What is mindfulness? At its core, mindfulness is the art of paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. It's about observing your thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them or reacting impulsively. Mindfulness allows you to be fully engaged in whatever you are doing, whether it's work, a conversation, or even a simple task like washing dishes. It's not just about meditation. Mindfulness can be practiced throughout your day, in every moment, by cultivating awareness and presence. The Buddhist roots of mindfulness. Mindfulness, or sati, is one of the most central practices in Buddhism. It is closely tied to the teachings of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which guide practitioners to be aware of their body, feelings, mind, and mental objects. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness is not just a tool for relaxation or stress reduction, but a path to liberation, a way to free ourselves from the suffering caused by attachment, desire, and ignorance. The Buddha taught that through mindfulness, we can observe the impermanence of all things and recognize the nature of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. By cultivating mindfulness, we create the space to respond to life's challenges with wisdom and clarity, rather than react out of habit or emotional impulse. Mindfulness as the foundation of change. Mindfulness plays a key role in creating lasting change because it helps us understand the root causes of our behaviors and thought patterns. When we are mindful, we become more aware of automatic reactions, the unconscious habits that drive our decisions and actions. Rather than reacting impulsively to challenges or setbacks, mindfulness encourages us to pause, reflect, and choose a more thoughtful response. This ability to create space between stimulus and response is the foundation of personal transformation. 1. Breaking old habits. Many of us are stuck in patterns of behavior that no longer serve us, whether it's procrastination, negative self-talk, or unhealthy coping mechanisms. These habits are often ingrained over years of repetition. Mindfulness helps us identify these patterns by bringing our awareness to the present moment. By observing our thoughts and behaviors without judgment, we begin to notice when we fall into old habits and can consciously choose a different course of action. Rather than trying to force change through sheer willpower, mindfulness allows us to gently disrupt these patterns, offering a path to more positive and sustainable habits. 2. Changing the narrative. We all have a personal story we tell ourselves about who we are, what we're capable of, and how the world works. Often, this story is shaped by our past experiences, fears, and insecurities. Mindfulness helps us deconstruct this narrative. Through self-awareness, we begin to see that many of the stories we tell ourselves are not facts, but mental constructs based on limited perspectives. When we recognize the fluidity and impermanence of our thoughts and beliefs, we can challenge outdated assumptions and open ourselves to new possibilities. Mindfulness gives us the space to rewrite our personal narrative, empowering us to take on new challenges and live more authentically. 3. Cultivating patience and acceptance. One of the greatest obstacles to lasting change is impatience. We want immediate results, but real transformation takes time. Mindfulness teaches us the art of acceptance, the ability to be present with where we are in the process of change without rushing toward an end goal. Instead of pushing ourselves to be different, we learn to accept ourselves as we are, knowing that change will come naturally as we practice mindfulness. This patient, compassionate approach to growth allows us to make steady progress without getting discouraged. Why mindfulness creates lasting change. While traditional approaches to change often focus on external strategies or techniques, mindfulness addresses the inner landscape, our thoughts, emotions, and attitudes. Here's why mindfulness is so powerful in creating lasting change. 1. Increased self-awareness. Mindfulness helps you become more aware of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This awareness is the first step toward change, as it allows you to identify areas of your life that need improvement. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you understand your true self, which creates the foundation for meaningful transformation. 2. Non-judgmental attitude. One of the core principles of mindfulness is non-judgment. Instead of criticizing or condemning yourself when you make mistakes, you approach your experiences with curiosity and compassion. This non-judgmental approach allows you to be kind to yourself as you navigate the ups and downs of personal growth. By eliminating self-criticism, you create the space for change to unfold naturally. Number 3, presence in the moment. Many of our habits and behaviors are driven by thoughts of the past or worries about the future. Mindfulness grounds us in the present moment, helping us break free from the mental loops that keep us stuck. When we are fully present, we are able to respond to challenges more effectively, without being overwhelmed by emotions or old patterns. Number 4, reduced stress and anxiety. Change can be stressful, especially if we feel uncertain or overwhelmed. Mindfulness helps reduce the anxiety that often accompanies change by calming the mind and body. When we are less stressed, we are able to make clearer decisions, take thoughtful actions, and stay committed to our goals. Practical tips for incorporating mindfulness into your life. If you want to start using mindfulness to create lasting change in your life, here are some practical tips to help you get started. 1. Start with short moments of awareness. You don't need to meditate for hours to practice mindfulness. Start by taking a few moments throughout the day to bring your attention to your breath, your body, or your surroundings. You can practice mindfulness while walking, eating, or even brushing your teeth. The key is to be fully present in whatever you're doing. 2. Practice mindful breathing. One of the simplest mindfulness practices is mindful breathing. When you feel overwhelmed or distracted, take a few deep breaths and focus all your attention on the sensation of the breath entering and leaving your body. This helps calm the mind and brings you back to the present moment. 3. Engage in mindful observation. Take a moment to observe your surroundings without judgment. Notice the colors, textures, sounds, and smells around you. This simple practice can help you develop a greater sense of awareness and presence, and it can be especially useful when you're feeling anxious or disconnected. Number 4, use mindfulness to break old habits. When you notice yourself falling into an old habit or pattern, use mindfulness to pause and bring awareness to the situation. Take a few deep breaths, observe your thoughts and feelings, and consciously choose a different response. This small pause can make all the difference in breaking unhealthy habits. Conclusion: the power of mindfulness in transforming your life. Mindfulness is a transformative practice that empowers you to make lasting change by helping you become more self-aware, less judgmental, and more present in the moment. By cultivating mindfulness, you unlock the ability to break free from old patterns, rewrite your personal narrative, and approach life's challenges with patience and resilience. Rather than relying on external strategies or quick fixes, mindfulness enables you to transform from the inside out, creating sustainable change that lasts a lifetime. Connecting freedom with reality. Through this journey, I discovered that freedom isn't something we can grasp through forceful effort or rigid control. True freedom only comes when we understand that the lack of control is a part of life. Letting go is not about giving up. It is a mindful act that allows us to see new opportunities and experience the full spectrum of life. I learned that freedom is not something distant. It's a state of mind that can be realized in our daily lives. And to achieve that freedom, we need to practice mindfulness, compassion, and acceptance, 3 core elements that allow us to connect with ourselves and the world in a truly free way. While I am still on this journey, I believe that everyone can attain this freedom if we are willing to open our hearts, let go of what no longer serves us, and live each day with a heart that is free and mindful.